You have a VHS collection and a DVD collection. But sometimes that isn't enough. That's where television comes in. They say it's bad for us, but let's face it, television played a big part in our childhoods. Even when we think there's nothing, even to the pickiest of souls, there was always something. Sometimes the subscription TV service you owned had differing options from other services, but there was always something there, and I have the recordable collection to prove it. Back at the very beginning, and by that I mean 1996, we started with basic cable. It was so basic I barely even remember the service provider or what channels were available. It was so basic it doesn't even matter. The first thing I saw on TV, or at least the first thing I remember to this day, was some weird movie from 1990. It involved some guy sitting in a car on a railway track with a train approaching. He says shit and bails from the car. It took me a decade to realise this was my first exposure to one of my all-time favourite movies. Beyond that, I remember nothing. I was too young to be watching TV as basic as this. All I had were these videos. Then, in 1998, ONdigital made its first appearance. I've already talked about the history of ONdigital, so there's not much to go into there. It had flaws and many bad choices were made. When it comes to ONdigital, 4 channels leap out at me. The first was BBC Knowledge, an educational channel launched in June 1999. The best way I can describe it is television, culture and science, due to the number of scientific and documentary programming. Why the hell this channel would appeal to a 6-year-old like me, I have no idea. You're going to hear that a lot. The presentation was cool and all, but when it comes to programming for children, the channel had nothing going for it. In its 2-year on-air lifespan, there was only one TV show on this channel that I remember being designed for kids. It was called Dynamo. It was an educational show, shocker. I took another look at it recently and oh my god, it looks awful. It looks like a really bad early internet cartoon. Trust me, it's not worth your time. It's 2 ugly dogs talking about science and math. That's it. Forget this channel even existed. Then there was Nick Jr., a channel that is actually still going to this very day. There were 2 programs that caught my attention here, Blue's Clues and a weird show called Thomas and Friends. Why I liked Blue's Clues, once again, I have no idea. It was probably a case of me tuning in early before an airing of Thomas and Friends. My simple kid brain liked it, I continued to watch. It also probably helped that Kevin was an engaging host. Thomas and Friends I've already covered many times, so I'll just leave this subject with one question. It ran 3 times a day, always showing the same episodes each time. Why did I bother? I already had most of the good stuff on video. But no, I'm going to spend weeks recording a long marathon of episodes on one video. We all know how this one ended.
Scotland's big film premiere, Heat.
Next, we have ITV, or Independent Television. This is where I discovered Dig It, the weekend Disney cartoon marathon. Highly enjoyable considering how painfully early in the day it aired. I've covered Dig It twice, so there's not much left to say there. One thing I could say is that I discovered only recently that Dig It actually used to feature Sonic Underground. 22 years after I started watching, and I had no idea. As it turns out, the show was actually distributed by Buena Vista International, a subsidiary of Disney. Sonic Underground isn't a great Sonic show, but as a Sonic fan, the fact that this aired on Dig It is pretty cool to me. The marathon ran weekly for close to 7 years. This was the Disney Channel for me in these days. For all I know, Dig It could have inspired my earliest VHS recording, or at least the earliest to survive, Pinocchio from Christmas 1999. Which also features a Goofy movie on BBC One from the following day. Pinocchio is one of my top 5 Disney movies, and this was before I actually owned it. I saw in the TV guide that ITV was running it, and I just had to have it. That's the power of ITV. As for a Goofy movie, I'd like to point out that this was recorded in the old days when you could air a Disney movie on daytime television and actually keep a reference to capital punishment. You'd never get away with that these days. And of course, saving the best for last, we have Cartoon Network. There is a possibility that I saw Cartoon Network on basic cable, I really can't remember. Back then, it shared the channel with TNT, Turner Network Television, which would usually air more adultish TV shows. The kind of content you most definitely wouldn't see on Cartoon Network. When ONdigital arrived on the scene, Cartoon Network became a 24-hour channel. For a while. If I couldn't sleep at night, I'd go downstairs and watch obscure cartoons that haven't aired on the network in decades. Whether I was allowed to or not is a different story altogether. This lasted until May 2000 when Boomerang was launched. I was there, I remember the day it was launched. I don't know why I do, but I do. When it comes to ONdigital, Boomerang never had its own channel. It took the TNT route and aired late at night on Cartoon Network. Well, that sucks, now I don't get my stupid cartoons that no one else cares about. In 2000, my mother decided we needed a much needed upgrade. So we decided to get SkyOne Digital, the highly successful, not to mention superior in every way, rival to ONdigital. ONdigital was moved into my bedroom, and this is what I consider to be the true beginning of my love for Cartoon Network. Now I had access to the channel 24 hours a day, not including the time the service dedicated to Boomerang. Fortunately, if I was truly hell-bent on watching Flying Rhino Junior High and Tabaluga during the night, SkyOne Digital was there, where Boomerang actually had its own channel. At this point, Boomerang basically functioned as Cartoon Network 2, running mostly classic cartoons while Cartoon Network ran modern classics like Ed, Edd n Eddy and the Powerpuff Girls, even though the real classics like Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes still had a place on the network. When it comes to this new TV service, I still had the same channels as before, minus BBC Knowledge. That channel had pretty much worn out its welcome by this point. I had Cartoon Network, I had Boomerang, I had Nick Jr. and I had Dig It on ITV. All working their magic on me. But there was a new contender, making its presence known. Disney had arrived. I'm willing to bet Dig It drove me to this new channel probably more than my relatively short VHS collection. It just meant more of the same good content, in this case 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, as opposed to just 4 hours every weekend. It was still very early in Disney's lifespan, and it wasn't perfect. This was the days of Home Improvement, Men in Black, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, and even the Golden Girls. It was a very different channel. It hadn't found its true identity at this point. Although if I had to point to one show I loved, it would have to be Art Attack. I don't have any art skills, but this was a really cool show to watch. Neil Buchanan has a really engaging personality, and his artistic talents blew me away as a kid. Not bad for a heavy metal guitarist. So Disney Channel wasn't perfect. I wasn't completely won over yet. But then, in late 2000, something new came along. 3 new somethings, you might say.
The Disney Channel always has good stuff.
But we have busy lives and different tastes.
Disney has created 3 extra channels at no extra cost.
There were 3 new channels for us. Disney Channel Plus 1 was exactly that. It was Disney Channel on an hour delay. You miss something on Disney, come back in 60 minutes and watch it here. Playhouse Disney was the preschool channel, where all the shows designed for the under 5s were shown. It was okay, it did its job. Circle Time and Art Play were interesting. I liked Bear in the Big Blue House. Dave and Alex were decent hosts. The channel did what it was supposed to do. No more, no less. I should mention Playhouse Disney also existed as a Disney Channel block for more than a year before the standalone channel was launched, and continued to do so after the launch. Apparently this was due to Playhouse being a Sky exclusive. I still have a recording of one of those Disney Channel block endings from December 2003, and honestly, I'm not sure why I still have it. I could have reused this video for something more worthwhile, like Cartoon Network. And finally, we have Toon Disney, my favourite of the channels. Oddly enough, this was the only one of the 4 to actually air 24 hours a day. As the name suggests, it was nothing but 24/7 cartoons. It was the Disney version of Cartoon Network. That being said, as a cartoon lover, I don't think I gave this channel the attention it deserved. I never really invested that much in Toon Disney until at least 2003. I had no idea what many of these cartoons were, and that hurt my interest. I missed out on cartoons that would eventually grow on me, like American Dragon, Fillmore, The Weekenders, and even Kim Possible, one of my all-time favourites. The channel was phased out in 2006, long before its time as far as I'm concerned. Sky was nice while it lasted, but after moving house in 2002, Sky went bye-bye and we picked up Telewest, later known as Virgin Media. Other than a 2003 VHS recording I have of Tweety's High-Flying Adventure, there was absolutely nothing to say about Telewest. It was nowhere near as interesting as Sky Digital, and when you factor in my nostalgic fondness for ONdigital, it was probably the least interesting TV service we've ever had. It did nothing for me. That being said, I'm the guy who said Space Jam isn't that great when you get past nostalgia, so let's just forget I said anything about Telewest. Evidently, it didn't satisfy our entertainment desires, whether it be fewer viewing options or even some pricing issues, I'm not sure. I was a 10-year-old who watched cartoons, the reasoning didn't matter to me. So a year later, back came Sky Digital. Since the majority of the Disney channels had been Sky exclusives, I had gone almost a year without them. If I can say anything about this new Sky period for me, this is when my Disney viewing habits flourished. Not only was I regularly recording Disney cartoons on video, in this case Lilo and Stitch and Timon and Pumbaa, but Disney had become my go-to source for morning entertainment before school. Goof Troop, Lilo and Stitch, and House of Mouse. That was the way to go in 2003 and 2004. 2 years later, we learned of a newer version of Sky. They called it Sky Plus. It gave you the power to rewind, pause, and record live TV without the need of recordable videos and DVDs. In 2005, that sounded cool. Kids these days couldn't possibly understand the magnitude, but this was fascinating to us. Before this, we had no control over TV. Episodes of the shows we liked may only have one air date. If we were ill-prepared and missed it, we missed it. With Sky Plus, this gave us the ability to scroll through the built-in TV guide, select a program we'd like, and record it onto the internal hard drive inside the box. When the time comes, the box will automatically record the program you wanted, saving it for as long as you want, assuming you'd later record it onto a video or DVD. That was incredibly appealing and helpful. Now, I had Sky Plus for 6 years, and recorded hundreds upon hundreds of things. But I still remember the very first thing I ever recorded on this fancy system. Yeah, of all things, it was an episode of Tom and Jerry Kids. In this case, an episode called The Vermin, where Jerry gets an electric guitar, joins a band, and drives Tom insane. It's not a particularly amazing episode, but I was given the power of breaking in the recording capabilities of Sky Plus, and this was what was running on Boomerang at the time. Unfortunately, we only had one satellite box, so we had to share the recording hard drive, which means we'd have to be careful what we actually recorded, since longer programs required more hard drive space, and if space was needed for something else, things had to be deleted, never to be seen again. Now, as I mentioned in Ed, Edd and Eddy, Sky was offering a service known as Sky Multiroom. For an additional £12 per month, on top of your initial Sky contract, you're able to have a second Sky box in a separate room, giving you the power to watch different programs and movies on each box. After ONdigital went bust in 2002, I had been sorely missing having actual TV in my bedroom. Videos and DVDs are great, but they're getting old at this point. Add on the £12 in 2006, and now I have my own Sky Plus box. I've gushed about this euphoric event multiple times, so I won't do it again. What we will talk about are the 8 channels I dedicated my TV addicted self to for the next 4 years. First, we have a really obscure channel I'm pretty sure no one has heard of. It's called Cartoon Network. Beyond late night cartoon watching, no explanation needed. Then there's Cartoon Network 2, the new sister channel launched in 2006, airing from 3 AM to 7 PM. Cartoon Network 2 had a weird and confusing purpose. Cartoon Network started airing mostly new content in 2005, and anything cut from the channel was moved to Cartoon Network 2, although it still aired classic content. So to sum it up, Cartoon Network airs modern and some classic, Cartoon Network 2 airs all classic, and Boomerang also airs more classic, which may also be seen on Cartoon Network 2. It's confusing as all hell. It's a case of so many cartoons, so little time. For more information on Cartoon Network 2, check out episode 39, Help It's the Hair Bear Bunch. Then we have Disney. Disney Channel had passed its peak of enjoyment as far as I'm concerned. It was still good, but a lot of the content was live action, not exactly what a cartoon lover like myself desired. Fortunately, we still had Toon Disney. Until March 2006, when it became Disney Cinemagic. As the name suggests, this channel had a big emphasis on Disney movies, although it still aired some animated programming. Overall, it really wasn't a bad channel, it still gave me what I wanted, but I still feel like I didn't give Toon Disney the attention it deserved. Cartoon Network, Cartoon Network 2, Boomerang, Disney Channel, and Toon Disney / Disney Cinemagic. Those were the 5 main channels, and they covered the majority of the day for me. In case there was something that didn't appeal to me, there were 3 more channels, 3 pretty minor ones that still did the job for me. First, there was Toonami. This former Cartoon Network block was given its own channel from 2003 to 2007 and was known primarily for anime and action shows such as Beyblade, Gundam Wing, Samurai Jack, and Dragon Ball Z. Personally, I used Toonami strictly for Pokemon. Whenever a new Pokemon episode aired, such as something from Pokemon Chronicles, Toonami was the place to go. It didn't last long, and in March 2007, Toonami went off the air, making room for a relaunch of Cartoon Network 2, now a 24-hour channel. There was also Nick Jr., similar situation but with less relevance. Thomas and Friends this time. I saw season 11 of Thomas and Friends on Nick Jr. when that was new, but by 2008 the only reason I was tuning in was for Nick Jr. classics, and looking back, I don't know why. By this point, I had the complete season DVDs as well as the VHS collection. There was nothing to gain from this. Nick Jr. was a waste for me at this point. It was 1 5-minute short every night. It probably didn't take me long to realise I could be spending that time in better ways. On the other hand, there was SkyOne. There were 2 TV shows on here that caught my attention. The first was Road Wars, a reality TV show based around the Thames Valley Police, specifically their road crime unit. It was a good show, the first 5 seasons were. But what drove me to it, I'm not sure in the slightest. The best guess I can offer is that I turned on SkyOne early for something else, and this just happened to be on at the time. That being said, I do somewhat recommend Road Wars. The first 5 seasons, yes. Season 6, maybe. And Season 7, not a chance. And of course, there was The Simpsons. I don't need to talk about my history with this show, I already did that. So I'll just mention what SkyOne did for me. 2 hours of The Simpsons every night with Domino's Pizza on Tuesdays. That's the way to go.
Relax. It's Domino's, sponsoring The Simpsons on SkyOne.
Not bad, huh? So, let's recap. I'm a Cartoon Network addict, so Cartoon Network and Cartoon Network 2 were the 2 main points of interest. Inevitably, there would be a show I had little to no interest in, and that's where Boomerang and the Disney channels would come in. Switch over for half an hour or so, let the crappy show run, and switch back as if nothing happened. Throw in SkyOne at 7 PM and rinse and repeat until 11 PM when Cartoon Cartoons takes the spotlight. If, on a rare occurrence, absolutely nothing was available, break out a DVD or check for anything decent on Sky Anytime, the new on-demand service. And there we have it. That was my daily routine from 2007 to New Year's Day 2011, when the new Cartoon Network began and my childhood ended. 24 hours a day, even with a decent VHS and DVD collection, there was always something on TV for me. Before we call it a day, let's give these services some ratings. It seems a little weird to give them to TV services, but I have videos in the collection for them, so I say they count. I can't give a rating to that first cable service we have. Beyond Back to the Future 3, I remember nothing from it, and it would be unfair to rate it based on incredibly vague memories. I give ONdigital 3 out of 5. This worked wonders on me as a kid, when my Cartoon Network addiction was growing. That being said, when I look back, there were numerous problems with the service that really hindered it from becoming a massive success, so I can't rate it that high. Sky Digital I give 4 out of 5. If you've never had Sky before, it is incredibly easy to use, and chances are it will have exactly whatever programs you have a desire for. Telewest gets a 2 out of 5. It was fine, but rather bland. It won't impress anyone just coming off a Sky subscription. Finally, Sky Plus. This was the peak perfection when it comes to Sky for me. Even with Sky Plus HD and Sky Q, as far as I'm concerned, none of them come close to recapturing the wonders of regular Sky Plus. 5 out of 5, no question. Wow, this is making me feel nostalgic. This makes me feel like watching something retro.
Boomerang presents Daffy Duck's movie Fantastic Island.
Hey, I remember that movie.